I was dead in my sins, hopeless, any dream of life crushed. I don't know why he chose me when I had nothing to offer him. But that's who he is. His love flowed through my soul. He said, "Awake, awake." And it's no longer I who live, but he, the glorious one, life itself, Christ Jesus, who brought me back to life.
Good morning, church. How are you? Doing good. It's warmer in here than it is outside. I'll tell you that. It's getting cold out there. And I don't understand some Oklahoma weather. You're going to have to tell me about this. I mean, when I was in Tulsa and it came under 32 degrees and it didn't rain, it snowed. Down here, they're calling for just no snow, but it's 29 degrees. Am I right? Does that work that way? I don't know. I don't understand that. You guys are going to have to explain this to me. I'd rather have snow than freezing rain, but that's just me. Guys, I have a literal axe to grind with you this morning. Now, forgive me. This is going to be a little bit loud, but I want to do this just for a second and just for a minute, just so bear with me here. But I don't know, has anybody ever sharpened a knife, sharpened your lawnmower blades, or sharpened an axe before? Okay, we got a few guys in here. And women. Yes, she's like, so that's great. I love it. I love it. So when you're sharpening something like that, what you can do is I've got a grinder here, and the angle matters, right? And so what you're gonna do is you're gonna turn it into here, and then you're gonna put the blade across this stone just like that. Flip it over at the same angle, right? And you're gonna run it down the other side. Then there's a stone that has a higher grit on it. Does that make sense? And so it's gonna be a finer sand on it, and so you run it through that one. So you're gonna come and take it, just like that, flip it over. You do that. And then once you get it sharp, I can feel it, it's getting sharp here, but you're not done. These stones have even higher grit on them. And so what you do is you got to pour water on it. So what you're going to do is you're going to wet these stones, and then you take it at the same angle, right? And you're just going to run it down here and do that. Now, you guys might have heard the verse, Proverbs 27:17, where it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Have you had those people in your life? I've had plenty. One of those guys was David Shaw for me. I remember David, he was a guy that he worked on my dad's farm. And we worked together. He was about 10 years older than I was. And he was a deacon at the church. He was passionate about Jesus. And he was a fully committed, devoted follower of Christ. And when we would work on the farm together, he would have conversations with me, usually about two things. And they were always very passionate conversations. And it was about Jesus and about politics. He got very into politics. And I remember, I admired him. And he sharpened me. So that later in my life, whenever I went to college, I started out playing college football. And I did not think about one iota what I was going to do with the rest of my life. I was just playing football. Honestly, didn't even give a thought to what major. How stupid is that? But that's what I did. And so I just took general ed classes. And after 2 full years of taking general ed classes, guess what happens? You run out of those, and you actually have to declare a major. And so I remember going to my counselor, and he's like, okay, you're out. What are you going to do for the rest of your life? And I was like, I don't know. It's Tuesday. I didn't realize we were having this conversation. And he's like, well, you got to decide, man, like quickly. And so I said, well, I don't know. Like, shoot, what do I do? And I remember I admired David Shaw. And he was a guy that just was somebody I could go to for stuff like this. And so I called him up, and he was the first guy that put it in my mind that, man, I really think that God might have called you to ministry. And I thought, nah. Nah. And so I don't know if I've told you guys this or not, but I said, nah, I want to go make money. And so I thought, well, you know who makes money? I've heard that pharmacists make money. So I was like, oh, I'll go be a pharmacist. And I went back to the counselor, and the counselor's like, no, you don't just decide on Wednesday now to be a pharmacist, okay? You got to actually take some pre-med class. You know, it works either way. So I couldn't, turns out I couldn't push drugs for a living, and so I thought, well, might as well get into ministry, you know. David Shaw, I'm eternally grateful for him. He's somebody that challenged me, somebody that I could look to, somebody that I admired, somebody that was there for me, somebody that pushed me into things that God had for my life, but I didn't see it in me, but he saw it. That his own example sharpened me. He was that. He was Proverbs 27:17 for me. People influence us. They do. People influence us. Now, we've been talking about this series, Back to Life. Man, there's times in our lives where we get in moments where are not comfortable, are not great, where we feel distant from God, where we feel alone in our faith, where we feel like God's not speaking to us. You know, we've all kind of been there. I mean, probably all of us. And if you haven't been there yet, probably you're going to experience that. It's not abnormal to be there. We all get there. But this series is talking about what are those things that God uses to bring us back to life. And there's several different things. Last week, we had a great conversation about tough times. God can bring tough times into our lives to, not bring them, but use them in our lives to bring us back to life. I think that God could tell us, take a look around at the people around you, right? And many times, if they're the right people, they can absolutely influence us and even bring us back to life. It's not good to walk in faith alone. Did you know the first thing that God said when he created Adam and Eve is it's not good for man to be alone. But who you're connected to matters. We're all wired to be connected, right? But who you're connected to, it matters. It absolutely matters. I said in youth ministry all the time, show me your friends and I will show you your future, right? It's so true that who you connect with in middle school, in high school, in college, that will determine a lot for you. And it continues to be true into adulthood. Now, if you're probably like me, someone in your life helped you in your faith. Like if you point back to somebody, who would that be that you would say, you know what? Yeah, she really had an influence on me in my faith. Many of us, it might be our parents. Maybe it's a grandma who would take me to VBS every summer. Maybe it was a friend that invited you to church. Maybe it was a neighbor. Maybe it was somebody else in your life. But probably somebody had an influence in your faith. If you found God later in life, maybe you had a friend or a coworker who helped you start that journey. And if you're still not sure about your faith even today, like maybe you're just sitting here and you're not sure. Maybe you really haven't decided yet, what it is in your faith. The fact that you're sitting here, I bet you could point, or if you're watching online, I bet you could point to somebody who at least influenced you to do that. And it might not even be somebody that you know. Sometimes it's people that we watch on YouTube or TikTok or things like that. But people influence us in almost everything that we do. And that's exactly how God designed it. It works amazing whenever it works well, right? And if that's true, and it is, then the flip is true too, that not only people influence us, but you right now have an influence on someone else as we speak. That someone is listening to the words that you say. That somebody is watching your actions. And did you guys know that whenever you're going through hard times or tough moments in your life, have you noticed that what we do with other people whenever we see them going through hard moments, do you know what we do? We pay attention, don't we? We look in, we're interested to see how are they going to react? What are they going to do in that moment? When you're going through those moments, man, it's interesting to know that, people are watching, people are listening, you're influencing people even as you're going through those tough moments in your life. And I feel like that there's two main reasons why people flame out in their faith. If they totally flame out and walk away from their faith, I feel like the first reason would be that they really weren't totally committed in the first place. We've all seen that, right? Whenever they came to Christ, but they weren't really fully committed. They weren't all in. They really didn't mean it. They weren't in it for the long haul. We can all understand that. But the second reason is because they never got fully connected with other Christ followers. That would be the big reason number two, that people flame out in their faith. And this might be true of you, or you might know somebody that it applies to. But when we give our lives to God, guess what? We are assured that we're going to get attacked. 100%. There have been so many people who've given up on their faith and who backtracked on their faith, but if only they would have been connected to other Christ followers. Now, if you're sitting here today or watching, and you had somebody else in your life to help you get here, man, be grateful for that. Because the people that we surround ourselves with matter. Now, if you want to make smart decisions in your life, okay, you got to put yourself around those kind of people. For example, let's say you want to get into the short-term rental business or buy some real estate or do something like that, right? You probably want to get connected to people who are doing that and doing that well and being successful at that. If you want to make wise choices and you want to start investing in the stock market, you're probably going to connect yourselves and at least have some conversations with some people that are doing that and kind of know what they're doing, right? Same thing is true if you want to make good grades in school. If you surround yourself with other people that make good grades, you're probably going to benefit from that, right? And I'm not just talking about you copying their homework. If you want to make wise choices, be around wise people. The converse is true too. If you want to be stupid, hang around stupid people, okay? It's always true. Ecclesiastes 4:10 in the New Living Translation says this: if one person falls, the other can reach out and help, but someone who falls alone is in real trouble. I've few people right now that check in with me, that encourage me, and that pray for me. And that's happening right now. In fact, there's a guy, one of those guys, he just texted me last night, and he said that him and his wife were praying for me right now. Man, that helps. Man, what a blessing that is to me personally, right? God has designed us so that people can help us when we're in a tough spot. But probably the most important role that somebody could ever play in our lives is to help us to become better followers of Jesus. Yeah, great if they can help you in the stock market. Great. That's awesome. But the most important thing is our relationship with Christ. And if you put yourself around other people that are going to help that develop, you're doing good. So today, I want to highlight two stories. And these two stories are going to be on total opposite ends of the spectrum. And one's going to be in the Old Testament, one's going to be on the New Testament. One's a failure because of what he didn't do right. The other one is a huge success. So I want to go into 1 Kings chapter 12. So if you got your Bibles, that's where we're going to be at today, 1 Kings chapter 12. But the first guy, he's Solomon's son. So you guys remember we had King David, King Solomon, both very great leaders, and then his son. And his son's name was Rehoboam, right? Rehoboam. And Solomon, his dad, had a really amazing reign of power. He was building the kingdom up. He was the wisest person that had ever lived. He was conquering. He was doing all these things. But the way that he was able to do some of it was he taxed the people very highly, okay? And so when he died and Rehoboam assumes the throne, naturally the people come to Rehoboam and it's like, okay, that was great, but we need a tax break, okay? And so they come to ask him for a relief in taxes. And here's what happens. In 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 4 and 5, it says this: "Your father put a heavy yoke on us, but now lighten the harsh labor and the heavy yoke that he put on us, and we will serve you." That was the promise. They said, look, you do this for us, we're going to be loyal. Rehoboam answered, "Go away for 3 days and then come back to me." So the people went away. Now, Rehoboam is not a total idiot, okay? He does something very wise here. He doesn't make a snap decision. He said, go away, give me some time to digest it, right? Now, if it's a small decision in your life, okay, we do need to become decisive people, okay? I heard about one lady, she said if she was hiring somebody really important at her firm, she would take them out to lunch, to Qdoba or something like that, whatever. And if they would just, she watched and let them order first. And if they would stand in line and just kind of like hem and haw, and oh man, I don't know, you know, kind of thing, then she was like, if they can't make a decision about lunch very quickly, then yeah, they're probably not for us, okay? And so with decisions like that, now she would never hire me because I'm like, oh gosh, white rice, brown rice. But with life decisions, we need to take our time. We need to push pause. We need to get some input on that. Many times, you know the adage, just go with your gut? Trust me, don't do that. Don't do that on life decisions, okay? Go with your gut for lunch because that's where it's going, so that's fine. But when it's a big decision, we need time to think about this. Just go with your gut doesn't always work out for us because we need to remind ourselves just how deceptive our heart really is. Do you guys remember the verse in Jeremiah 12, verse 9? It says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it?" I mean, the heart is a terrible leader. Here's why. Because the heart's compass, where does it always point? Right here. The heart's compass always points to me. You know, my heart tells me, you know what it tells me? It assumes the best in me and the worst in you. It tries to get even. It's never lent to forgiveness. You know, my heart it's narcissistic. And if we make our heart our God, we're going to live the consequences of a narcissistic life. That's the very real reason why you need other people to help us make these life decisions. And Rehoboam, he's wise enough to know that he needs input. So, in verse 6 and 7, read this. It says, then King Rehoboam, he consulted the elders. Perfect. Good job, Rehoboam. You consulted the elders. Great job. Who had served his father Solomon during this lifetime. How would you advise me to answer these people, he asked. They replied, if today you'll be a servant to these people and serve them. Man, there's some real, if this was a leadership sermon, man, there's some real stuff in there, right? To serve, servant leadership, right? He said, if you would serve them, man, they're going to serve you. And he said, give them a favorable answer, and they will always be your servants. He starts off strong. And he goes to those that are further down the road than him, that are wise. And we all need mentors in our life who are further down the road than we are. Right now, I have 3 guys that are my mentors, that are helping me in every step of the way. That, you know, very, very often, every week, we're all texting together, or I'm texting each one of those guys, and man, they're helping me. And each one of those guys is wildly different in their gifting, in their personalities, and what God has put in them. And so it is wonderful because I can get advice from different people, and you know what? I'm able to pull out God's best for my life, but because those guys, and every single one of them are way further down the road than I am. It's helpful to have those kinds of people because there's 2 ways that you learn, 2 ways that you become wise, and you get to choose. You can either become wise and learn from your own mistakes, which is fine, or you can learn and become wise from other people's mistakes. And I would much rather do that. Have you ever known somebody that people thought, or you thought of them, that they were wise beyond their years? That's because they learned from other people's mistakes. See, if we only learn from our own mistakes, it's going to take us our whole lifetime to become wise enough to be effective. And at that time, it's too late to be effective. To be wise beyond your years means that you have other people that are further down the road that are inputting into your life. 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 8. But Rehoboam rejected the advice of the elders. Well, I guess he wasn't so great after all. And he consulted the young men who had grown up with him and were serving him. He asked them, what is your advice? How should we answer these people who say to me, lighten the yoke that your father put on us? The young men replied, these people have said to you, your father put a heavy yoke on us, and make our yoke lighter. Now tell them, my little finger is thicker than my father's waist. My father laid on you a heavy yoke, and I'm going to make it even heavier. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions. And Rehoboam thought, yeah, that sounds good. I think I'm going to go with that. And so can you imagine the guts that you have to stand up before the people and say, I'm going to scourge you with scorpions, guys. Just get ready. Well, it didn't work out how he thought it would. I don't understand what he thought was going to happen, but it didn't go well for him. I think what happened here, this is what I'm, if I'm a counselor or a psychologist here, I wonder if Rehoboam had a little man complex. Think about his dad and his grandpa. Giants in the faith, giants in the king. Everybody revered King David. Everybody revered Solomon. I mean, Solomon was the wisest man that ever lived on the face of the planet. You got this little kid, Rehoboam. And do you wonder sometimes, do you think that maybe Rehoboam wanted to be taken seriously? Be really careful if you're trying to lead in a way that you're just trying to be taken seriously and that you want people to think that you're important. And that's what he did here, because I think they spoke to that in his life. And he said, yeah, you think he was powerful. I'm going to be, right? And it didn't go well for him. 10 of the 12 tribes seceded, and they formed their own country, never to return again. And it totally shattered the country. The people you surround yourself with matter. Proverbs 13:20 says, walk in the wise and become what? Even if you didn't know the verse, you could probably guess. Wise. For a companion of fools suffers harm. Let's flip it. Let's go to the New Testament. Let's go to a positive story. A guy named Barnabas. Hey, here's a little Bible trivia for you guys. Any Bible nerds in here? Okay. Barnabas' real name was Joseph. Okay. It was Joseph, but they called him Barnabas. The apostles changed his name to Barnabas, which means son of encouragement. He was just that kind of guy. So you got Barnabas here. And then over here, you got another guy named Saul, who we would later known as Paul, okay? Now, Paul would become the most influential Christian ever save Jesus. He would go on to write most of the New Testament. He would plant churches all over the world. He would train up leaders, and he would do probably more to launch Christianity than anybody else. But all that might never have happened if it weren't for Barnabas. See, what happens is, you guys know the story. Saul, he's going to Damascus to ruin more Christians' lives. He's already killed some, and he's on his way, and then Jesus appears to him. And he's like, hey, man, yeah, I'm not fake. I'm alive. And so Paul's like, oh, my gosh. He thought Jesus was dead, but it turns out that Paul was dead wrong about that. And so here he is. He converts immediately. And what does he want to do? He wants to join the church. Well, what do you think the church is going to, they're hiding from Saul. They're hiding. He's going in there and arresting them, ruining their families, going in there and killing them. And so Paul's knocking on the door like, hey, can I come in? No, you cannot. And he's stuck. He's stuck. Nobody's going to let this guy in. Maybe it wasn't just fear. Maybe, right, if he had killed your relative or arrested your family or your friends. See, maybe it wasn't just fear. What? Right? I mean, who wants that guy walking in here? Praising God, teaching the word to you. No, Paul. Keep going. Barnabas, son of encouragement. He comes in here and he says, no, guys, this guy's for real. And he vouches for Paul, and he's the one that brings him in. And he brings Paul back to life. And then something interesting happens. See, Paul and Barnabas, they go around the world and they start on their missionary trips, and they're going and doing some great things. There was this young kid that joined them. Do you know his name? His name was John Mark. And John Mark was kind of tagging along and with them and everything, but then something happens. John Mark gets upset about something. We don't know exactly what, but I think it might have been that Paul was acting inappropriately, in his opinion, to the Gentiles. That he wasn't just sticking to the Jews, that he was trying to reach the Gentiles, us. And he gets upset and mad, and he bails, and he deserts them. And he goes back to Jerusalem. And I wonder if he doesn't do a little tattletelling on Paul. Because the whole thing blows up whenever they get back. And in Acts chapter 15, they have this council of Jerusalem, and basically all that means is a big meeting to decide, oh, Paul, are you out of bounds here or not? You know, and you got to give them grace because they're still learning. Like what's allowed, what's not allowed. And then they decide, no, Paul, you're right. You're right. They are the church now. They are part of God's people. Let's go. Let's reach it. And they say, let us not make it hard for those to find God. And so John Mark hears that, and he repents, and he changes his heart about the whole thing because Paul and Barnabas, they're like, okay, let's go. And so they go out to their next journey, and who wants to tag along again? Little John Mark. And what does Paul say? No friggin' way. No way. Heck no. I'm not taking that guy. He deserted us. There's no way I'm taking that little kid. Get out of here. No. And Barnabas, he's like, whoa, hey, no. Let's not give up on this kid. Like he was wrong, but now he's changed, and let's hey, come on, grace here, grace. And Paul's like, yeah, give him grace, but I also am wise, and I'm not taking him anymore. And Barnabas is like, we're taking him. And you can just see it get escalated. And finally, Paul says, look, if you want him, you take him, I'll take someone else. And that's exactly what they did. Barnabas and Mark, they go on their missionary trip, and Paul takes a guy named Silas, and then they go. And both of them do great things. Barnabas did not give up on this quitter. He was a quitter. And he abandoned him. But Barnabas, he wasn't going to give up, and he was going to give him grace. And he took John Mark with him. And he sharpened him over time because we know that what Mark turned out to be, it's probably the guy who wrote the Gospel of Mark. We're pretty sure that's the same guy. And Mark does other wonderful things throughout the New Testament. Might not have ever happened if from that moment Barnabas didn't bring this little kid back to life. There's some good news. It ends happy. When Paul was at the end of his life, he writes in 2 Timothy 4:11, he says, get Mark and bring him with you because he is helpful to me in my ministry. There was reconciliation in the end. And you know why? Because of Barnabas. Because of Barnabas. Barnabas brought back 2 people from death. It's just the kind of guy that he was. Those guys were blessed because they had Barnabas at their side. So, how do we put this into our lives? Number 1, be intentional. If you're taking notes, write this down. Be intentional about who you surround yourselves with. We want to learn this from Rehoboam, that we want to surround ourselves with people who want to love and serve God instead of themselves. It's easier to pull somebody down, right, than to pull somebody up. So we got to be intentional about that. Find people who will challenge you, who will sharpen you, who will help you become a better follower of Christ, right? I think of the guy that was probably the first guy in that arena for my life was a guy named Jamie Mitchell, okay? Jamie was a great friend of mine growing up, but he was always a fully devoted, committed follower of Jesus Christ. Always, ever since he was a little kid. And he was always the example and the standard, for me. And I always looked to him for that. He helped me even as a little kid. Now, as an adult, he still lives in Texhoma, my hometown. And you know what he is today? He's a CFO at the Farm Credit of Western Oklahoma. He's kind of an important guy over there. But when I talk to him on the phone, or whenever I go to Texhoma and talk to him in person, do you know what the only thing that we talk about is? The only thing he wants to talk about is Jesus. He is in love with Jesus. And there was some time ago that the First Christian Church of Texhoma, Oklahoma, they lost their youth pastor. He moved, and then they didn't get another one. They couldn't find one. So you know what he did? He decided, I'll do it. He gives out loans at a bank. But he had no training. He had no resources. He had no business doing it, but he did it. And every Sunday morning, he will get up. This morning, he probably did it. He got up with his wife, Chelsea, and they make breakfast for the youth. And they all come to church and sit in church because he's making them breakfast. And then every Sunday night when they have youth group, he and Chelsea, they make dinner for them all. And then he prepares a lesson and gets a game together. But you know what really changes this life? This is a little, can we put that back up, Jeremy? Thank you. This is a little bitty church, okay? And look at their youth group. That's their high school group that they just took to CIY a few months ago. The reason why all those kids, that is literally half of the entire high school. Right there. Okay? Do you know why that happens? It's because his love for Christ just oozes out. And he's serious about his faith. And he loves students. And do you know what that is doing for their church? It is the lifeblood of their church back in Texhoma. I mean, that is making that church thrive. They're having more impact than just them. They're going back and transforming a community of Texhoma, Oklahoma is a better place because of Jamie Mitchell. I'm so grateful for him in my life. He has been the stone for me of which I grind and sharpen myself. Be intentional. Find somebody like that. Number two, it's this. Allow people, those people to sharpen you. Man, you're going to have people criticize you. If you're going to do anything for God, you're going to have people criticize you. You have to decide who are you going to be criticized by. Rick Warren is a pastor in California. He said it this way. He said, I would rather be criticized by small-minded thinkers who only think of themselves. I don't want to be criticized by people who are trying to reach the lost, who are out there trying to find one more for the kingdom of God. I think we should all be that way. You're going to get criticized. Trust me, you will. Choose who you want to be criticized by, who's going to sharpen you, and allow those people to speak words into your life. Give people permission to speak the truth. Ecclesiastes 4:12 says this, though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves, and a cord of three strands is not quickly broken. Number three is this, look for someone else to help. Some of us need to find people to join us. Somebody needs you. Somebody needs your example in their life. Somebody needs you to invite them to church or your life group or to pray for them. Be a Barnabas to them. And the last one is this, join a life group. Life groups matter. We want every single person in here to be in a life group. And you know why? Somebody said that everybody needs 4 types of people in their life to be successful. You need models, you need mentors, you need partners, and you need friends. Most likely, you're going to find more than one of those types in a life group. There's all different kinds of people that you would find in a life group. Man, it's real dangerous to run alone in our faith. The Bible says in 1 Peter 5:8, it says, be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for somebody to devour. Lions, we all know, go for the one that is alone. He doesn't go for the one that's running in the pack. He goes for the one that's alone. And it's the same with our enemy, Satan. When we're trying to do it alone, not in a group of Christians doing it together, you can almost be guaranteed that, man, you got a target, an extra target on your back. Metal doesn't sharpen itself. If I use this, over time, it's naturally going to get dull. I have to be intentional about sharpening this thing. Godliness doesn't happen by accident. We don't grow stronger in our faith by ignoring our faith. If you are intentional about this, I promise you, you will be a better person because you will be a better follower of Jesus Christ. And that's the goal. That's really the only goal, because everything flows from that. A wise person in your life can help you grow into the person that God created you to be. People can bring you back to life, but you've got to be intentional about being around those people. Look, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your family to join up with other people that are following Jesus. Last thing is this. Did you notice that as I was going through here, that there was different types of stones and different types of things that work together to sharpen this thing? That's the church, isn't it? There's somebody over here that is not a people pleaser, and they can tell me straight like it is. There's somebody over here that's an encourager that can encourage me when I'm down. There's somebody over here that's a prayer and that will pray for me. There's somebody over here that's just a great example for me in my faith, right? That's the church. We're all different, and it all works together. That happens in life groups. When I say that it's our goal that everybody is part of a life group, that's why. I'm begging you. I'm begging you after the service to go through that door. It might change your life. Because right through that door, after service, we're going to have a group link. And we'll talk about that more in here in just a few minutes. But I'm begging you, at least think about it. Be intentional. Let me pray.